All right. I'm live. At least I think I am. All right, guys. I'm Josh, your average guava rancher. This is the Tech Chief channel, and welcome back. I had a nice hiatus for the last, I was like 10 or 11-ish days. That was nice. Very nice. I went home, saw my family, et cetera, et cetera. Insert motivational, awesome speech here. But what's the important thing tonight? The important thing tonight is what I am here to discuss, and that is, how long does it take to get a programming job? So if I had $1 for every time somebody asked me this question, I'd have probably like $173. All right. Every time, not every time. All right. That was a little bit of over embellishment, but anytime anyone's ever DM'd me about anything to do with becoming a programmer or just anything about it in general, like the number one thing, maybe it's number two thing, it's up there. Number one or two is like, how long does it take? Because that's something that you would want to know, right? And that's something that people should know, especially if they're going to dedicate, their time and their money into doing and learning this kind of thing, right? And so I understand where the question comes from, and you have everyone who asks that, you have every reason to, right? You have every reason to wonder about that, and you should. In fact, if you're not, maybe I would say you might be a little too like lackadaisical. But some people, that's it's a good thing. Let's just say you're like 18 or you're 16, or even like let's just say, I don't know, you're a trust fund baby and you're 25 and you don't have anything to do and you have all the time in the world. Well, then that's not going to matter to you as much, right? And actually, if that is the case, good on you, because then you have more time and in a stress-free environment to learn. But most people are not that, right? So how long does it take to learn? Spoiler alert, guys. Spoiler alert. I mean, there is no definitive answer for this question, okay? But don't get upset, because I actually can. I'm going to give you guys an actual range. Okay, I like to give ranges for things instead of giving definitive numbers, especially with things in this realm. Like if someone were to ask you for a salary requirement, never give them an exact number, guys. Always give them a range. But I'm going to give you guys a range. I'm going to talk about things that are going to speed it up or could speed up the process, and things that could slow it down, and some other kind of things that I think are going to be helpful for people who have either are thinking about going through the process, have already gone through the process. And if you're one of my guys in here, or you somebody that I know who already has been through the process, I think you probably resonate with everything that I'm going to say tonight. Harry Maguire Jr. stuck in the blockchain. Yes, I was stuck in the blockchain. Cody Moosenhoos 5-month speed run. That would be very admirable to do a 5-month speed run. Indeed. Very admirable indeed. Sovi Mafia says, hello and nice to see you. Still have fingers at their 4th of July. Yes, indeed. Jeff House says, can't believe I can hear you. It's mid-Pacific on a freighter ship. You can hear me good, loud and clear on a freight ship? Good, dude. Glad to hear. Glad to hear, man. Very glad to hear. So what is the answer? To make it short and sweet, and if you no longer want to watch any more of it, like I told you guys, there is no definitive answer, but I can tell you guys from both personal experience and almost 2 years now, not exactly 2 years, but almost 2 years now of running developer direction, even back before it was even called developer direction, with the people that I've worked with and seen go through this process. The average time frame, guys, is anywhere between 6 months on the low end to 18 months on the high end, okay? And it can be less than that, and it can also be more than that. And I have seen and have had clients who have been less than that, and I know people who have taken a lot longer than that, okay? So where would you fall in the midst of that? What would affect that for you? What could make it faster or slower? Well, that's all going to depend on a couple of things, all right? Yes, people like Tom Graff. Tom Graff, you're listening. You're the man, homie. People like Tom Graff, they've got it done under 3 months, all right? However, the thing about people like Tom Graff, guys, is Tom Graff is a freak of nature. And most of you guys, that's not going to be the case for you, okay? So if you're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna learn what I need to learn, or learn enough to be able to like get my foot in the door, or to be able to be pushing out massive amounts of code for like clients in 3 months time, it's possible, but again, most of you guys are not Tom Graff, okay? Shout out Tom Graff again. So let's talk about why it's going to take 6 to 18 months generally, all right? Generally. And what is let's talk, so why it's going to take that long, and first and foremost, let's talk about the things that you can do to kind of speed it up, okay? And I guess we'll talk about the things that can hinder it and make it slower, or rather slow you down after the fact, because that's probably going to be a little bit more negative, but I think it's going to be more informative, because even if you're not trying to like speed run, like Cody Moose and the Who's in the chat was saying, at the very least, if you're not acting like a weight on your own ankle, then the more the better, right? I don't think people should try to rush in this situation, in my personal opinion, because every time I've seen someone try to rush, they become overstressed. The more overstressed this person becomes, the less they're able to focus on what they actually need to focus on, and the less they're actually learning, the less confident they feel, and it just starts to cascade from there. So, like, if you don't have to rush, that's going to be all the better. And I think that's important too, because I've also seen that happen too. Is people say like, okay, I have to set a definitive date that I need to get this done by, and maybe that date's like 3 to 6 months, and most of the people, they become so overwhelmed. In all honesty, and the people that are going to be thinking like that, those people most likely are not going to make it. Okay, but so what are the things that you should be doing in order to speed this up? Maybe you have already like learned one language, or maybe you've just like tinkered around on Udemy or Free Code Academy or any one of those free resources. Maybe you guys just like looked at YouTube tutorials. Maybe you've actually already done like a boot camp. So are you done right there, right? Are you at the point to where you said, okay, I'm going to go apply for jobs now? Okay. If you felt like that, and did you apply for a job? Did you get it? Probably not, right? Especially if you just apply to one place. I doubt you just apply to one place. But that's another thing that I noticed. People, they'll actually end up just like, they'll get to this point where they think that they're going to get a job, and by then they stop doing the things that brought them there in the first place. So what are those things? What are those things that you need to be doing? Well, again, I'll leverage my experience, and I think that everyone at the bare minimum should be doing what I call this 3-step process. Okay. But it's really not rocket science. Okay, guys. Step 1, you learn. Okay. Now you could take that and you could scale it up to, you're going to learn a language, you're going to learn a framework, you're going to learn a specific, like, you're going to learn web development, you're going to learn this kind of development, some kind of area, whatever. But what I was talking about earlier when I said, okay, maybe you guys did a course, or maybe you took like a boot camp, or maybe, I don't know what your situation is. Maybe you spent whatever it was doing, and then you got to the point where you said, okay, I finished this, and now you're going to go apply. No. Once you finish learning something else, or you finish learning something, you have to immediately move on to something else, okay? You can't just be sitting and acting like dead space. You can't be sitting in dead space acting like dead weight, okay? So step 1, learn. Okay, step 2, build. So once you've learned whatever it was you learned that was new, and it should be new because you should continue to learn, then you're going to go and build what it was that you learned. And in fact, most of the time, that building is going to be part of the learning process. Okay, so step 1 and 2, they're going to coincide. So you build something. Maybe you build an application for your repository that you can showcase people off of whatever it was that you learned. Okay, and then step 3, you either apply or you source whatever target that you want to meet, whether you're trying to get like a W-2 job, whether you're trying to just find people that need development work done, and you're just trying to outsource for clients. That's step 3. All right. So after step 3, what do you do? Okay, so you got to the part to where you're like, okay, we're all good. I applied to some places. That's it. Now I just wait. No, you go back to step 1. So you learn something else that you didn't learn already, something new in computer science, in programming, in software development. You go and implement that, you build it, and then you continue to apply on the back end, and you just repeat that process, okay? That's the bare minimum that you need to do. But that is the point of me telling you guys is that's something that you can actually control. Okay, that's something that's within your realm of control. If you're doing that, you might not be necessarily like speeding it up, all right? You might not be flooring the gas pedal down, but you're not slowing yourself down, okay? You are moving forward and you are walking, even if sometimes it might not feel like that because it can get either hard, it can get mundane, it can get boring at times, and it can get frustrating. Something that I think that actually isn't talked about a whole lot in regards to something that's actually going to help people, other than all these things that you can like learn, build, et cetera, things that are hand-on, is like just basic networking, guys. You'd be surprised at how much of an impact networking and meeting people can do for you, your career, your entire life in general, actually. And they have this saying, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, right? I would say that it's going to be both, right? I mean, you can know people, you can have the who you know thing, and that can help you get your foot in the door. But what keeps your foot in the door and what propels you even further is also being someone that doesn't just know people, but they also know their shit too, as well. You really on a ship? Oh, to Jeff, I don't know. Maybe he was joking, man. In the meantime, what will you suggest people do? Internship? If you're someone who you're looking for a job and you want a paid job, right? And you're offered an internship and you've never had a programming job before, even if the internship's not paid, you take that thing and run with it, because the biggest hindrance for most people in getting like just their first foot in the door, because in all honesty, guys, once you get your first job, it's about 10 times easier to move on to something bigger and better after that. And the biggest hindrance to getting that first job is your resume, not having like resume clout. So if you get an internship, even if it's not paid, and you don't have to put on your resume whether or not it was paid or not, even if it's not a paid internship, definitely put that on there, because an internship, guys, it's really just basically you're a poorly paid employee who does more work than they should for what they're getting paid. So you're doing real work. If you get offered an internship, 100% take it. 100%. Cody Moose says it's true. Tom is as an anomaly. Yes, he is. Christian Soda with the burgers emojis in the chat. You have like less than 10% chance of your resume being reviewed by the company, from what I hear. Yeah, so that depends on where you are, quote unquote, uploading your resume. And a lot of times, even if it's like directly onto the company site, there's basically an algorithm, guys, that like goes and sorts through all these resumes. So if you don't have the right words, but if you don't have the fancy flashy buzzwords on your resume, you're not going to, right? You're not going to. That's something we talk about in DD all the time, is like what do you need, what do the people need to have on their resume to get past that barrier? Because all you need to do to start getting the process to actually be on those actual interviews is to just get somebody on the phone. And that's going to have to deal with your resume and how that's formatted, but that's very true. Christian Soda says, don't worry about percentages, mate. Worry about changes in a place of fear. Chance in a place of fear. Just know it's possible. Yeah. It's not just possible. It's very possible. Very, very possible, right? It's all about like, with the resume thing, it's just being that algorithm. It's just like social media, dude. That's all it is. It's an unfortunate thing, but welcome to 2022. So there are a lot of factors that you can't control, and that actually can affect you and slow you down. And these, again, something you can't control, but this is something I want everyone to take in consideration. So in times of like economic slowdown, so if we go back and look at the pandemic, you guys remember when that happened? Early 2020. A lot of like companies were doing what? I mean, we saw all over the place. There was like people were getting on like Zoom meetings and they were having like mass layoffs, stuff like that, because everyone was scared, right? The economy was scared, companies were scared, people were scared. I know that when I had guys back then going through like the learning and applying process, that was a scary time. It was a tough time. Times like that can actually make it slower for you, right? something you need to take in consideration if that happens to be going on, and you're going through the process and you're looking at yourself and you're saying like, hey, like what's wrong? Like why? Like does nobody want me? You got to take the world into consideration, okay? Um, and the opposite could be said too, right? Like in times of economic boom, companies will be expanding and growing faster than they actually should. We're seeing the repercussions of that now with like places like Coinbase, Netflix, Tesla, Meta, Facebook is their the real name actually. Actually, on paper, it's Meta now. No, they'll always be Facebook to me. That can do the opposite, right? Another thing, times of the year, guys, like holiday seasons, like right now, summer, we're like in the dead of summer. In most of these like corporate places, if you have like just 1% of the workforce like out on vacation, which is probably more than 1% at any given time right now, things just get super slowed down because they're already slow as can be since they're just giant companies, overbloated companies. They're already too slow for how it's supposed to be. So times like now, times like the regular holiday season, Christmas, New Year's, all that jazz, those are going to be like slower times as well. So if you happen to be like sending out a bunch of applications around that time and you don't hear anything back, and like in 2 weeks, and you're like, wow, like none of those people send anything back to me, just wait, just be patient. More likely than not, at the very least, you're going to hear something in a couple weeks after that you thought that they should have already sent it to you, because places, guys, they just move slow. People are slow, companies are overbloated, and holiday season just make that even more slow. So anything that can like have like if you take a larger overall view and look at the world and see what's going on, some people call that macroeconomics. Anything that would fall underneath that umbrella, you should take into consideration, okay? Because that can definitely speed it up or slow it down, and that's not necessarily something that you can control, but something that you should know, okay? So there's a guy from DD, and this isn't very like macro, right? This isn't worldview example right here, but it is important in his area of the planet, which happens to be Germany, and he right now is in the process of trying to find a job in Romania. So he's a German citizen. I'm not going to say his name, but if you guys know him, you guys know what I'm talking about. And something that he had heard from a recruiter the other day was when the recruiter asked him, where are you trying to be located at when you're working from this place? He said Romania, and he said, I have to ask you a question. Why Romania? Because I can't count how many people in the last couple interviews that I've had have said that they wanted to be in Romania. So you're looking at like a localized example, like a place like Germany, where the marketplace situation with software developers is they're German citizens. They don't want to live in Germany anymore. They want to go live in Romania and work for the companies in Germany. You guys could, make a guess as to why that's the case. Maybe it's because Germany's not the best place to be anymore. But we're not here to make fun of Germany. But that's important to note, right? If you were in like the US or some other kind of area and you have something similar to that, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Okay. So in his situation, since that's the exact thing that he's trying to do, and it seems at the time that there's like a large amount of people in his exact area also looking to do the exact same thing as him, well, in that case, more people are trying to do the same thing. It's going to be a little bit harder for him to get that exact thing that he wants. Okay. Does it mean that he can't? No, of course not. But situations like that is exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, guys. So last stream that I did, I think this was the last stream. If it wasn't the last stream, it was a stream before that. Last stream that I did, I was talking to you guys about the different types of people who end up kind of like being in that make it or break it point for being like a programmer, start to finish, right? There's people that are almost there. If you're one of those quote unquote almost there people, and if the end goal for you guys is actually meaningful. It's actually meaningful enough, like you actually want to do this, okay? It's not just like this fancy thing that you just decided that you wanted to do for one day, and then the next day, as soon as it gets hard, or as soon as you start getting discouraged, you quit. If the end goal is actually meaningful for you guys, then you just have to walk through it, okay? You just have to walk through it and don't quit, all right? Sounds cheesy, and hey, maybe it is cheesy, but you know what's more cheesy? Being a quitter, and you're also not going to get where you want to be. If you quit because you're discouraged and because you're not where you want to be, like right now, that's a lot different than quitting because you just think that you just realize that this just isn't for you, and it's also not something that you want to do. Okay, in that case, well, then you probably should quit, right? If you know for sure it's not for you, you should quit. But if the end goal actually is meaningful for you guys, and you happen to be discouraged and you think about quitting, then if you quit, you're literally just being like everybody else in the entire planet. All right, you're being like 99.999% of the rest of the population, and most likely, guys, you're probably going to quit a lot of other things that you try in life. I say that with as much kindness as possible, but I'm being realistic with you guys, and everyone. You guys should probably be realistic with yourselves too, right? If you are someone in that situation, realize that and just be like, okay, I spent all this time, money, effort, and energy to sit here and do this, and as soon as it starts getting hard, I'm going to quit. No, you got to keep moving. In fact, somebody in the chat right now, Cody Moose and the Hoos, who said "R.I.P. Journey." Cody Moose and the Hoos, guys, has a quote that he has said in our chat a couple times, not just in here, but in the DD chat as well. Just be too stupid to quit. Literally, just be too stupid to quit. And you know what, guys? Everyone that was too stupid to quit, everyone that I know that was too stupid to quit, the guys in DD who were too stupid to quit, the people that I knew before DD, they were too stupid to quit, and they just kept moving on, even when it got very hard. All those people made it. 100% of those people have made it. So if you are someone that has made it too, you can relate to this. When you finally at the end of that tunnel, when you're on the other side, you're most likely going to find out that you have new problems that are even scarier and more challenging than becoming a programmer to start. Okay, just you wait. You might not like it as much on day one of you actually doing it as you like the idea of it of day one of you beginning to decide that you want to learn how to program. Okay, and you look back and you probably say like, oh, times were a lot easier back then. Things were a lot more simplistic, and sometimes some of us wish we could go back to those times, right? Some of us wish we could go back to those times. Just to put that in in scope of like with everything else in life, guys, like most things end up being like that, do they not? Ask yourself if you've ever accomplished anything in life, whether it's like big or small, something that you're proud of, something that you enjoyed to do, and then you went on to do basically kind of the same thing, but at like a higher level where it was a little bit harder, and you did that over and over and over again. Every time you always look back and you're like, man, that was a lot. That last one was a lot easier than this is now, and I was being a spoiled little brat, being upset about that. So, one final thing that I want to just give you guys advice on, and it's not kind of like not related to the speed and the time that it's going to take for you to become a programmer, but it is just some advice in getting there. Is you have to force yourself to do it when you don't want to, and for whatever reason you don't want to. If you get bored at the time, or you don't feel good, or maybe you just feel discouraged, or maybe you just can't force yourself to sit still and actually learn. Maybe that's always been a problem for you. You have to, okay? You have to force yourself to do it, even when it gets boring, even when it gets tiresome, even when you don't feel like doing it anymore. Have this phrase called hands-on keyboard, okay? We can call it the hands-on keyboard mentality if we want, but you literally have to sit down and you literally have to put your hands on the keyboard, all right? Go figure, but in all seriousness, you have to actually sit down, okay? You have to actually code, And that not necessarily like, okay, you just start typing code. That's not what I mean. But you do have to actually type code. Okay, if you avoid actually doing it, if you just sit and read, you sit and study, or maybe go and like listen to audiobooks, whatever. You're taking courses, or you're in a boot camp, or even if you're in school, et cetera, and you're not actually coding. That is no different than like reading a book about fine cuisine and never cooking anything or tasting anything. So and then all of a sudden you think you're like an authority on like fine cuisine, but you're not until you've been there and done that. And how can you do that? Well, you can do that by putting the hands on the keyboard and writing the code, building stuff. Literally just sit down and chill out and just start something, okay? Even if it's just 5 minutes at a time. And that's all you can muster up. Just those 5 minutes is better than zero, okay? Whiteboard out the stuff that you don't understand. The act of you having to whiteboard out or do a diagram of whatever it is that you're trying to either, create, fix, implement. If you don't understand it, the act of having to do that is going to help you understand it a lot more. Okay. It'll also help you give you an idea of what, like, if you're going from like zero to like building an application, it's going to be a lot easier to give you an idea of like all these different pieces that you would need for that, which that is usually like a big part for some people. And also push past the tutorial hell phase. All right. Everyone's going to go through the tutorial hell phase. And that is probably like the hardest thing to do, is to get through that. Not because it's technically hard to do, but because that actually is very boring. Unless you just happen to like stuff like data structures and things like that, which most of us we don't, right? Even if you're a smart person, you don't like wake up in the morning, you have like a chubby for like a linked list, right? How do you do that? How do you get past the tutorial hell? Well, you can do stuff that's as small and silly as like just like challenge yourself in a certain kind of way. Like you can take the project from something that you're trying to implement or do from tutorial hell, and you can just like change it a little bit to make it a little bit more interesting to you. Okay, you can like play a game with yourself. You can try like, okay, I'm gonna try for 30-minute intervals. I'm gonna try this without Googling at all. Right? You can maybe even like disconnect your internet for 30 minutes and turn it back on. Or maybe you're like, hey, I'm gonna do this whole part without using the internet at all. Literally anything like that. Okay, instead of implementing this in Python for just the sake of the algorithm, maybe I'm going to do it to like do like a stupid puzzle game or something like that. Okay, if you like puzzle games, I don't know who actually does like puzzle games anymore, but so anything like that. Okay, excuse me. Anything that you can do to change it and make it a little bit more interesting. I've done the whole like not Googling things at certain time periods because that's just like I don't know. It's just like makes it a little bit edgier, right? A little bit more adrenaline. Oh my God, it's not compiling. I can't Google. It's all over. Oh no. But when you actually get to like the skill level, it's when you get past tutorial hell, but you're still not like a professional yet, and you still don't know exactly how to like implement anything, or you don't have the confidence that you can implement almost anything given enough time and resources. Then at that skill level, then you don't have to be doing like anything in tutorial hell anymore, right? At this point, you can create your own projects, and like you can use your own ideas instead of stupid tutorials. And in that case, it's going to be a whole lot more fun and interesting for you to learn, because at that point, you're just building stuff for yourself. A bowl of stew says, learning to code is painful. It's like working out. After time, it gets easier. Yeah, exactly. It does. It's like anything else. A chubby. Yes. What up, Tom? Working on Zipper. Working my Zipper is a puzzle game. Ha ha! Ah ha ha! Got a code. Metos? Best puzzle game? METEOS. Let me look at that up. METEOS. William Hartman, better known as Mateos, is an American professional League of Legends player. In League of Legends, you're going to code the man who's playing the game? I'm confused now. Or is there a game that has that name as well? I don't know. It's probably a bad Google search on my end. All right, guys. I hope that was helpful, especially if you're someone who you're kind of in the process already and you're stuck there. You're feeling kind of frustrated. Listen, you're going to, okay? Get used to it. Not everyone is a freak of nature like Tom Graff. Shout out Tom Graff. But everyone that I know who was too stupid to quit has succeeded, okay? And if I would like to reiterate, if the end goal is actually meaningful for you, okay, it's not just some kind of idea that you want. If the end goal is actually meaningful for you, just stick it out. You've already went that far. You've already spent your time doing it. It's not an impossibility. Make yourself feel better. Go and finish it, and then get to the next problem in life, because that one's going to be a lot harder. All right, guys, I'm out. Have a good night. As always, learn to code. Learn to change your own tire. Self-custody your crypto. Link in the description box below for all the above, except for the tire. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.